Not likely to be a factor in the closing stages at the moment are Caleb Fairley and Brian Naolu.
That's the worst place to be caught when you've been out front. Even if it's just for 5, 10, 15 kilometres, the place you don't want to get caught is on the foot of a climb, because they'll go by a completely different pace. So it's time now for them to adjust, try and get a bit of a breather. Just see the Japanese national road race champion there. Really lovely road jersey, the white with the red dot in the middle there. That's Yukiya Arashiro, number 72, if you can catch him.
Laurent Pichon looks as if he's in difficulty. He's being shelled. We're on the lower slopes of the Col de l'Hospital, 14.1 kilometers in total. So they've already got more than a kilometer clicked off that distance, and at the back of this group, riders are scrabbling to get on top of the gear. And immediately we see difficulties for Nolu. That's the end for him. Ivan Rovny has gone out the back for Tinkoff Saxo, so they're reduced in the amount of firepower they've got up front. And AG Tour Le Mondial trying to work out what they're going to do in terms of setting up Jean-Christophe Perrault.
Fair play to Caleb Fairley there, straight to, he got caught, and he's straight on the front of the bump. It's completely opposite of what I thought would normally happen. And that's Alexis Goujard there at the back. Well, Christophe Riblon, they've given a different number.
Well, that's a surprise, isn't it? Christophe Riblon, star of the Tour de France, star of the Tour of Poland after the Tour de France, and came up with some wonderful performances sort of mid to the back end of last year. As we see difficulties now coming on for Rowan Dennis, man sitting second overall. Towards the front of GC, well, they're the power men, capable of coming up with fast, short time trials. And AG Tour Le Mondial are losing riders, and they could do with as many as possible. Bonifant not quite able to follow the pace at the moment, but the worry for them, the main concern, of course, is that they get Jean-Christophe Perrault into decent position when it comes to the business end of this climb.
They're looking at that drastically reduced bunch, being led here by a very brave Caleb Fairley. There appeared to be still 4 riders from Azure Desert sat in there, peppered through the bunch, looking after the interests of their leader, out-and-out leader, who's sitting 4th overall at the moment at only 11 seconds. Jean-Christophe Perrault, as well as being a good climber, a very, very talented time trialist as well.
Goncalves there of Team La Pomme Marseille.
Some great shots here of this climb.
Absolutely gorgeous.
It's an absolutely stunning scenery. Really is beautiful. It will be very beautiful for these riders, not with the tempo that's being set at the moment. The bunch being strung out now. Number 22 there. So 27, sorry. Oh, Tom Dumoulin now sat on the front of the saddle. Picture of concentration as riders go by him. Still holding his own,
isn't he? Yeah.
Still holding his own.
Long way to go. Still a big group there, but Dumoulin's in the middle of it. He's not quite at the back of it at the moment, and these mountains tend to eliminate from the back.
It's quite a fast climb. It might suit his capabilities a little bit more. I don't think he'll like the steeper sections as we head midway through the climb. But at the moment, the gradient's a little bit shallower, but then it really does rear its head up midway through before flattening again, and then really kicking up in the last couple of kilometres. But that's all still to come.
So the sight that the riders will be dreading, they'll all just be looking at the road ahead and won't be considering the amount of elevation that they've still got to attain as they head up the Col de l'Hospital that overlooks Porto Vecchio in Corsica, this town that dates back to 1539. Hewn and on the immense pink porphyry rocks. Julien Berard has done his work. We saw him on the front of the group just a few moments ago. He gave what he could, and then his lactic just went to a level that could no longer be endured. It wasn't so much enduring it, he just the legs will have locked up, and that was the end of that. Definitely.
When your legs go on a climb, that's it. There's no real time to recover. As we see, Breton Sèche, Environment on the front, 3 riders. The team, number 61, Eduardo Sepulveda, Anthony de la Place, Brice Fillieux, Armindo Fonseca, Florian Guillou, Christophe Laborie and Florian Vachon. A strong team.
Well, they've got 3 riders in the top 14, so that's yeah, they've got 10th, 13th and 14th. Then they got another rider, Florian Vachon's only 42 seconds down in 49th position. So they've got a lot of riders that are clearly in good form. And Bretagne Sèche Environnement is a team that has stepped up to this level of racing this year and is clearly showing that they're not cowed by the experience. Moved up to Pro Continental level, so one off the top. Division 2 team, but clearly with riders that have got good legs at the moment. And Eduardo Sepulveda, the Argentine, is their best placed rider, 10th overall at 18 seconds at the moment. And they're knocking out a good tempo. And amongst their number, of course, is Bryce Fayou, who took that famous stage of the Tour de France a few years ago.
Definitely, it's hasn't really capitalised on that result. Obviously a fantastic solo victory, I remember it well. But as happens, it seems, with some French riders, they all pull out a fantastic win, but they don't seem to then, I don't know, fulfil their potential that they've shown in the Grand Tours from time to time. But he's got another chance now. His team obviously looking after him. And Sepulveda in 10th place. And of course, it's so important for you know, the smaller French teams, although they have stepped up this year, to show themselves in a race like this, especially as the defending champions aren't here. You know, a race that's organised effectively by the Tour de France is vitally important. 10 kilometres to go, and still, and this is all uphill. Does shallow out towards the top of the climb as we see an attack.
That's an interesting tactical variation from Bretagne. They've decided to send a rider off the front, not happy with the pace that well, they were setting. Inside the final 10 kilometres of Critérium International, the final stage to the summit at Col de l'Hospital, Bretagne Sèche Environnement are on the attack, as behind Mathieu Boucher of Trek Factory Racing tries to control the pace and make sure that he can present Bob Jungels into a decent position as they try to close this one down. And I wonder if comfortable and confident that they're going to be able to close that one down.
It does look like the distinctive rangy figure of Brice Filieu. Of course, he won that stage. It was in 2009.
That's
so we're going
now.
back a few years. And second overall in the Paris-Carrez in 2008. And his best placing in recent years was 5th on a stage in the Tour de France in 2012. So he's had a few quiet years. So again, feeling good today, quite clearly.
Well, he hasn't done his teammate Armindo Fonseca much good, has he? Because he's immediately shelled as a result of the injection of pace. It'll look under his right armpit. We'll tell him just what he doesn't want to know, but what he might have expected, actually. That he's not quite able to sustain the power necessary, and it looks as if they're dragging their way back to him. Yep, it wasn't just the camera foreshortening it. That's Mathieu Boucher setting the pace on the front.
Yeah, Mathieu Boucher setting out a nice tempo. Be interesting to see if we see the Schlecks go to the front, whether they're riding for the Schlecks or they're going to put all their eggs in one basket to look after young Bobby Jungels, who of course sits third at only 8 seconds behind. If you look out for him, he's wearing the Luxembourg National Road Race Champions jersey, a really distinctive jersey, blue, white and red, as opposed to the Trek Factory Racing strip of his teammates, which is primarily all black. If you look very closely, there is some very, very thin white pinstripes on that jersey. Obviously Trek stepped in and the team lost the sponsors at the end of last year, so a couple of teams, Cannondale the other one, and of course Giant, a few of the World Tour teams primarily sponsored by the big bike manufacturers. And of course their main rider, David Cancellara, looking at the classics. But it's good to see riders, the younger riders like Jungels, given the opportunity in this sort of event, and of course he came very close last year. And still, I reckon about 25 to 30 riders left in that group. Several of the Team NetApp Enduro riders there, and they've got a couple of very, very good climbers on the squad. Cesare Benedetti, Ike Camano, Tiago Machado. Very good very, very good team indeed.
Well, Machado, I suppose, is the biggest name there. Well, Ike Camano, of course, has been top pro for many years, but Machado signed as a man for GC.
Definitely.
That's where they're headed, into the blue sky, and still a decent sized group up front. 8.5 kilometers to go. They're about 7% at the moment is the gradient, so it's just going up in a series of ramps. As you can see, it just levels off and then goes again. Average for this particular kilometer is just over 7%. And that's the side over the bay. Down below is Porto Vecchio and the sanctuary of their hotels, but right now they're thinking more about what's awaiting them at the top of the hill is Alessandro Vanotti.
Definitely game over for him. Another one to go at the back, so slowly but surely this lead group is being whittled down. I think about 25 riders left. Still the yellow jersey, riding very, very strongly.
It'll be interesting to see how many riders manage to, or how many of the leading contenders will have teammates around them when things really kick off in a big way. And it looks as if Tinkoff Saxo are well represented in this group at the moment. So too AG Tour Le Mondial have managed to hold enough. And that is interesting. Pierre Fedrigo not able to relive the glory years. A winner of this race back in 2010. He's been second, I think, in 2011. But this is a race of a very different character these days in Corsica, and it's been a very, very popular addition to the well, it's been very popular since they moved it to Corsica. Part of it, of course, was all part of the learning about how to run pro races on the island, so that it'd be ready for the Grand Départ of the Tour de France last year. Very successful it was too.
Yeah, I know riders were quite, spoke to several riders, a little bit fearful of going over to Corsica with the narrow roads, but what a success it was. And the race certainly fits the terrain here. It's absolutely stunning, and there's a little bit of everything, bit of flat, but it's remarkably hilly and challenging terrain as well, as we saw last year with a superb finish taken out by Chris Froome, and then of course the depart of the Tour de France. But this is a really difficult climb.
Only amount of time. We just saw Alex Howes disappearing off the back for Carmen Sharp, and Arnaud Cortet of Française de Jeux is struggling at the back.
Did actually look like Machado from Team NetApp Enduro was losing contact as well. Number 114 in the black and blue of NetApp.
Going again. Why not? Absolutely fantastic. Oh no, he's gone at the back. He's attacking from the back of the group. Brice Bellew has made his effort, and unfortunately not quite equal to the task today, so burnt all his matches in one fell swoop. And why not at least have a go, show the jersey, and you'd never know, you might catch them napping. But for Brice Bellew, well, he's waiting for the form to come, and it won't be today, unfortunately. So we see Brajkovic, another man with a big reputation. He's just he's building his form and not quite able to stay with them today. Laurent Pichon also going backwards. So now it's a much reduced group up front that are hanging on up front on the, and I tell you what, in the middle there is Tom Dumoulin. He's doing a great job indeed. So too is Frank Schleck.
Yeah, Frank Schleck looking pretty comfortable there, pedaling a really low gear, which indicates, generally speaking, if you see riders sitting very still on the bike as other riders are labouring, you can see from the back here, there are riders really struggling to hold this tempo set by Matthew Bush of Trek Factory Racing. Clearly this team looking to tee up Jungels or the Schleck brothers. Have got some options, but over the last few years it's been very, very difficult to predict just how the Schlecks are going to go. 1 minute they're fine, but I'll be honest, they haven't been going that well over the last couple of years. But Andy Schleck is out the back. We just got that confirmation, so it's only the elder brother Frank who's still in there. So Andy Schleck has gone, and now it's the time of Azure Desire to start attacking. You can tell it's a warm day. The jerseys zip right to the bottom as Azure Desire take up the tempo with 3 riders at the front of affairs.
Boucher has gone to themselves, try and get organised, set exactly the right tempo necessary to shell riders, but at the same time not put their own team leader under too much pressure. Boucher has a little, well, he's trying to think about seeing how much longer he can hang on for, but if he's pulled off the front, you can be sure that he's gone. And I think that leaves Jungels a little bit vulnerable in terms of teammates. This though, well, it's the mountain that decides really. When you come to climbing the big mountains, coming up to summit finishes, it's really about what you're capable of doing, what athletically is in the tank, and less about tactics.
It was interesting, it looked like Perraud swung to the left, didn't want to be exposed. Even on these climbs, although you get far less an aerodynamic advantage by sitting behind as you do on the flat, there is still some advantage to sit behind, especially when you're at the front. Obviously it's sheltered to the right, but there could be some wind coming from the left-hand side. So Perraud looking at who's left and swung back into the centre of the peloton, or the It's a very reduced peloton. He's looking good, but you see that sometimes it is easier in the wheels, regardless of it being a climb. And looking like virtually every rider has their jersey unzipped, so really warm conditions.
Hubert Dupont on the front for AG Tour Le Mondial, a great man to have in your camp. But, wow, there are Trek Factory Racing reinforcements there.
It was Bush who's gone to the front again.
Well, amazing. I thought he was gone, but maybe he just, I don't think he could go back to the car to get anything. I think he maybe just had a little bit of a think about it. And maybe the pace that was set by AG Tour Le Mondial didn't send him out the back, and he just thought, well, maybe I've got a little bit more to give, and that's a fantastic professional response from him.
It certainly is. Sometimes on the faster climbs, as you can see, they are moving along at a fair tempo here. You can get what we call sliding space. You swing off the front, relax, and let yourself slowly drift down the bunch, effectively taking a break, but you actually don't get dropped. You then slot in at the back, have a breather, and then ramp up the gears and move up again. You still need to be on very, very good form to do it, but you can afford yourself a bit of a break by doing it. And again, some professionals do it on circuits. They'll start at the front of the bunch in the World Championship, for example, slowly drift down the climb, actually effectively riding the climb slower than the guys at the front, but still being in there. So it's something that you can do. But Youngle's clearly going, not Youngle's, Bush doing that very, very efficiently there, and is back on the front, setting a tempo which slowly but surely is whittling down this front group to a pretty select group of riders with only 6.2 kilometers to go.
Well, clearly, I mean, AG Tour have the numbers, but they just didn't want to be there at that moment. They didn't want to be setting a really tough tempo. They want to try and save their legs for the end game.
Well, the hardest part of the climb is still to come, and as you say, it's all about the climb and the rider's ability, but sometimes just holding the wheel of a teammate and having teammates around you. As we see Tom Dumoulin riding superbly, and he's actually looking pretty comfortable. He's a big rider. He looks out of place there. When you look at the physique of a lot of the smaller, punchier, slimmer climbers around him, he's doing a superb ride. But Frank Schleck looking remarkably comfortable there, looking pretty skinny as well. He's a skinny chap, but he does look nice and lean, pedaling nice. 25th overall at 30 seconds. Could he be a danger? Picture of concentration. Look, his shoulders hardly rocking at all, just turning a lovely low gear.
Looks very comfortable at the moment, Frank Schleck, and clearly of the two brothers, he's going well. Enforced absence from the peloton last year, but he's managed to get a contract and he's back in the peloton.
I think sometimes when you manage to pull out a ride, clearly he got caught unfortunately in Paris-Nice, but if you've had a period of bad form and a period out of the game, you need to get your mind back into it. Sometimes riding in an attacking fashion, as he did in Paris-Nice, can get your motivation back and your mojo. But clearly looking good at the moment. Easing himself out the saddle. There's the sight of Youngles there in the black socks and the jersey fully unzipped, riding in 5th position.
So that's clearly Boucher's pace is not quite enough at the moment, and Perrault has requested that Alexis Varmos goes to the front. Scarponi's gone. Wow.
That's a bit of a surprise. Michele Scarponi, arguably one of the favourites for this finish, out the back.
So Varmos of AG Tour Le Mondial sets the pace on the front, and it's clearly a very, very difficult tempo indeed. And I can tell you the percentage at this point on the climb has just ramped up from 7% up to just over 8%, and you can see the damage that it's doing. Riders are disappearing in ones and twos. Romain Sicard of Europcar is gone. Ah, there's Dumoulin in the yellow jersey. So the overall race leader can't live with this pace.
He did well to hold on that long, I think. Very good ride. He'll just try and struggle to the finish now.
Cyril Gauthier gone as well, and Dumoulin's got to try and get back there if he can. And here comes the big move from AG Tour Le Mondial. They've whittled down this group to just a handful of riders, with Jean-Christophe Perrault and Varmos doing fantastic work on the front of the group, and they're disappearing in ones and twos, and it's at this point, there can't be much more than 7 or 8 riders involved. Bob Youngles is just about managing to cling on there, but he's towards the back. Frank Schleck looking very, very comfortable indeed. I Am Cycling have, could it be Matthias Frank?
It looks like Mike is in there as well, sat in about 5th place. I must admit, Frank Schleck looked very strong there. Youngles looked as if he was in a little bit of having a few problems. He's been distanced. It looks like he's about 10th back, but Schleck's there, Mike is there, and of course Perrault is there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 groups.
It's a big effort. Riders. Youngles is gone. Sitting fourth in line there is Frank Schleck, looking very good indeed. Matthias Frank, indeed, it is the man from I Am Cycling. And there is Jungels, his jersey opened, desperate to try and get us on. He's looking behind himself as if, can anyone help me here? Well, you're on your own, unfortunately, Bob. And he's a big man. He's a reasonably good, well, he's a very good time trialist. So to get up these hills, it really is another prospect indeed.
He's still riding very strong. He's not panicking. Another rider from Team NetApp Endura, riding last man in this front group, is Jose Mendez. So he could be a danger. A very, very good climber. Looking well. It's looking like he's struggling a bit, but he's still holding the wheel. And this pace is relentless. Frank Schleck looking remarkably easy, even having the time to talk to Perrault there. But Micah looking good as well.
Wow, penny for those thoughts. I wonder what's being exchanged there. Is a little bit of kidology, could be a bit of sledging, or what are you going to be talking about there?
I think he was asked perhaps for a bit of help, but I don't think Frank Schleck would be wanting to do too much. It'd be good if he had Jungels there as a bit of a reinforcement. If that gap does open, I think then he may assist in the pacemaking, but still 4 kilometres, over 4 kilometres to go, and the steepest part of the climb. You don't want to go too early because this is the fast part of the climb. If you can save your legs as much as possible, then hit them hard on the steep part, as we saw last year when Chris Froome romped away to victory. That's the place to go. But I say Frank Schleck is looking at the danger man at the moment, as is Micah.
Yeah, Rafa Micah and Frank Schleck looking very strong. Jean-Christophe Perrault, AG Tour Le Mondial have the numbers. Well, there's 2 of them. That's about it, really. And what a fantastic job that's been done on the front by Alexis Vermoz. Just 25 years of age. It's in his 4th year of pro racing. Well, 3rd year actually. He's 2nd year with AG Tour Le Mondial. He was with Soyasson before that. 5th in the Tour de Pays de Savoie in 2012, as we hit the 4 kilometres to go mark. And Vermoz is doing a great job. But what's Perrault got now? Because several riders clearly capable of staying with him. Rafa Micah in the yellow of Tinkoff Saxo.
It's actually Tiago Machado from NetApp. Sat at the back there, mouth agape in mute protest at the tempo being set at the front here to Ajit Dezar, and then the Polish rider. Micah sat 2nd place, looking very, very comfortable, and Frank Schleck still turning a low gear as we get an attack.
We were expecting that one. Jean-Christophe Perrault is very, very impatient, and the only man that can go with him, the initial surge, is Rafa Micah, but quickly responding to that is, well, Matthias Frank, and just ahead of him, 3rd in line at the moment in the all-black strip with the white sleeves, that's Frank Schleck.
Micah doesn't want to work. He knows what's up ahead. He knows the hardest part of the course is still to come. He doesn't want to go too early. These are the riders that are going to contest the finish. But of course, Ajit Dezar have strength in numbers.
Sepulveda has managed to drag himself back to the front, and there, I mean, Perrault's looking for a bit of a dig out from Micah. Micah says, no, I'm not interested.
Micah's not going to assist the pace setting with Perrault, sitting higher overall. Perrault, of course, only at 11 seconds, and the yellow jersey now but distanced. There's a brave display by Tom Dumoulin, but he's out of the game now.
And Machado for NetApp goes on the left-hand side of the road, and immediately that's responded to by Sepulveda, the Argentine riding with the Bretagne Session Varmont squad, as the AG Tour riders have a little look, and Machado is not going to be given any opportunity. So these attacks are coming from a relatively low speed. You could tell the way that Machado was looking over his shoulder to see if any other riders were coming up. He looks over his shoulder once more and realises that he has immediately been called back to attention, and Frank Schleck goes on the right-hand side. Frank Schleck with Matthias Frank on his wheel, and Rafa Micah, well, having just chased down the previous attack, immediately on top of that one. Looks good, doesn't he?
He does look very, very comfortable. That was almost like a testing the water attack, because as he attacked, he's looked over the shoulder at the same time. That wasn't a full-out attack. Perrault did one earlier on. Attacking as you look over your shoulder.
Here comes Schleck again. Schleck goes once more, and who's going to be able to respond to this? Well, it's Rafa Micah that takes up the responsibility. Perrault is looking a little bit heavy-legged. Matthias Frank towards the back of the group isn't enjoying this. Neither is Tiago Machado in the blue of NetApp Endura, as Frank Schleck has a little look over his shoulder and realises that they've all pretty much come back to them. Some of them with greater facility than others. Rafa Majka looking very strong. Perrault, well, it's a busy style that he has anyway, isn't it? It's that sort of hunched shoulders rocking left and right, so you're not always absolutely sure how well he's going, but at the moment he looks to be going very well indeed. As Sepulveda is really struggling to close the gap, and Schleck goes again. Well, it's Perrault actually that goes again, brings Majka and Schleck with him, and there's just a couple of bike lengths back to Sepulveda, and Matthias Frank realises he's got to go over that wheel and up to this group if he's to stay in contention. So just 2.5 kilometres to go, and it's really kicking off in a big way. Machado struggling to winch himself back to the group, and superb job being done by Veermos to stay with them as Frank goes now for IM Cycling.
That's a big attack.
One attack after another.
That's a big attack, a bigger gear. This is really causing some damage. It's stop, start, stop, start. That's the hardest type of racing to do. But Frank now on the tops has split this group. Machado was struggling so hard to keep in contact. This group has split asunder now. 4 riders going clear, but the ease again. Perrault looking over his shoulder, seeing what's happened.
So they've shelled 3 of them. Machado, as you say, and Sepulveda. And Veermos not quite able to stay with them. They might drag their way back on now, but here comes Schleck once more. So 4 riders up front as Schleck looks over his shoulder to see if those 3 riders are going to be able to come back into contention. And one man that has, as far as I can remember, yet to attack but has covered, well, at least half of them, is Rafa Majka, clearly in very strong form at the moment. The man from Tinkoff Saxo in the yellow colours, sitting second in line at the moment and looking strong. But looking strong too on the front is Frank Schleck for Trek Factory Racing, third in line for IM Cycling, the Swiss squad. And going very well indeed is Matthias Frank, 8th overall at 16 seconds. Rafa Majka 27 seconds down, so Majka has to do something if he's to get up overall, if he's thinking of more than just the stage victory. These 3 riders desperate to try and get back into contention, but surely they won't be able to play a role in the end game. With 2 kilometres left, Majka needs time if he's looking at this in overall terms.
Definitely Majka now takes up the tempo, but the rider in prime position for the general classification as Schleck attacks with 2 kilometres to go. That's quite a decisive attack on the left.
Schleck goes again, and it's Majka that covers it once more. Perrault is in pole position in terms of general classification, but he looks as if he's finding it ever more difficult to stay with these riders. So still it's a quartet up front as he looks over his shoulder, and he's putting huge pain on these riders, but Majka seems equal to it. Matthias Frank, oh, and they've really hit this tough 10% section that comes just over 1.5 kilometres from the line. Machado and Veermos, and in the middle of these 3 riders, Sepulveda. Well, those 3 riders pretty much out of contention at the moment. Let's get back to the front, see these 4 riders, because there's another attack coming very, very soon. You can be sure of it.
Frank Schleck absolutely piling on the fresh, in and out of the saddle, takes a glance over his shoulder, looking at the damage. It's between these 4 now as the group with Machado tries to get back in contact. You can see the hairpins here. Great shot a moment ago of the gradient. This is the steepest part of the climb, and the part of the climb where you need to do the damage.
And it levels out a little bit towards the finish. For Perrault, he's thinking about the overall, and there's almost a clash there just as Frank goes to attack, and just about barely manages to avoid a collision.
That was close. That really was close. Oh, they nearly brought each other off there.
Rafa Majka just losing his balance ever so slightly as he almost runs into the wheel behind, and then just finds that Matthias Frank is coming alongside at that critical moment. Veermos dropped by the other 2, sitting 7th.
It does level off a bit here, sorry Declan, before levelling right to the finish. So if they're going to break away, it's going to be on this steep section of road. Frank looks around, turning a bigger gear, and here Schleck goes again.
You knew it was coming. Frank was feeling a little bit vulnerable. He didn't want to be in that position, and it's Majka that has to cover it, and he does with facility. Clearly Majka is thinking only about the stage victory. I can't believe that the overall is within, you know, is within his compass at the moment, that he's actually looking in terms. And Perrault, with that interesting slightly upright style that he has, very efficient it is too.
Sitting right forward on the saddle. A lot of the pure climbers do that. Looks a little bit ungainly, but riding very strongly. He's the man in pole position in relation to the general classification, but there's still the stage win to go for. 1.1 kilometres to go, and it flattens out here, Declan.
Yeah, flattens out to what, about 4 or 5%, something like that. That's going to feel like heaven compared to the 10% that they've been enduring for the last little while. And I'll tell you what, if they keep messing like this, the other 2 riders, at least 2 of them, are going to come back into contention.
Machado really driving hard from that's a decisive attack. Frank Schleck opening up a gap immediately, countered by Majka.
Frank Schleck attacks once more. He's been the man doing all the attacking on this climb. Rafa Majka once more covers it, and it must be increasingly frustrating to Frank Schleck, who looks over his shoulder, and you just wish that he actually persevered and tried to keep the power down as they hit the kite. 1 kilometre left on stage 3 of Critérium International. On the left-hand side of the road, it is Matthias Frank for IM Cycling. On the right-hand side of the road, just getting back into the wheels with Rafa Majka for company, is Frank Schleck of the Trek Factory Racing Team, as Tiago Machado of NetApp manages to drag himself back up to the group. And I tell you what, if he gets up, they'll be very disappointed, because these riders are just looking at each other. Machado is going to get back on. If I was him, I'd attack.
And Sepulveda is also there as well, so we're now 6 riders back in the fray, and the road levels out a little bit here. They're all looking at each other. It's like a track sprint race now. This really is cat and mouse. And Sepulveda goes to the front.
Well, can you believe they've left those 2 riders, let them back into contention? It's the other riders just looking around. They've practically come to a standstill on this climb. Everybody just wants the win. They're not thinking about any other results. So now the group has swelled from 4 to 6, and very shortly they're also going to let Guillermo's back into it. As the attack comes now, once more from Frank Schleck. It's Matthias Frank that has to cover it. Rafa Majka finds himself sitting 4th, and the responsibility goes to Frank Perro, 3rd for AG Tour Le Mondial. And Frank goes again, and great to see it. Immediately that Frank Schleck pulled over, Matthias Frank realised that was going to be coming. That was the pattern. Inside the final 500 metres, and Matthias Frank hasn't managed to unhitch himself from Jean-Christophe Perro. Rafa Majka, it looks like he's done. So I think this was an absolutely excellent move from Matthias Frank, as he powers again onto the big gear, and Perro is killing himself to stay with him, looking very strong for the overall victory. Tiago Machado realises that Rafa Majka doesn't have the strength that we believed that he had, and Rafa Majka is struggling to stay with him. Frank Schleck too, by pulling out of the slipstream, realises that he might have let this one go. It's Matthias Frank driving for the line. Jean-Christophe Perro going for the victory for France, for AG Tour Le Mondial, but it's Matthias Frank that takes victory in the final stage of Critérium International of 2014. And with it, a fine victory indeed. And I think it's Jean-Christophe Perro that is likely to have got the big... will get the yellow jersey when they tot up the time. So victories for the 1st and 2nd rider. Great performance by Guillermo's of AG Tour Le Mondial. But that was a fine stage success and a wonderful opportunistic move.
Definitely. Well, Matthias Frank did the right thing. Frank Schleck attacked early on, got a bit of a gap, swung over. Arguably, he should have kept going, but Matthias Frank went over the top and just distanced himself from the rest, went very, very long, kept the tempo extremely high, and of course Perro was just happy. I don't think he could go by
his career at this point. 4th in the Tour of California last year, remember. 6th in Tour of Switzerland in 2011. There's confirmation of the final stage. Matthias Frank pips Jean-Christophe Perro for stage 3 success. Machado gets up for 3rd. Frank Schleck misses out in 4th. Rafa Majka didn't have it at the end, finishes 5th. Sepulveda will be delighted with his 6th place.
Perfect timing, very aggressive as well, helped split that group to whittle it down. Quite an exciting finish it looked like. Tiago Machado was closing the gap in the last few metres as well. Very brave, tenacious ride by him. He never gave up at all, as we see the slow motion. Frank crossing the line, quick glance over his shoulder, he's safe, arms aloft, wonderful victory.
So there's the provisional overall classification. It's Jean-Christophe Perro takes the overall victory by just 1 second from Matthias Frank. So it was as close as all that. He had to stay with him. The bonus seconds, so important. Tiago Machado gets up for 3rd overall ahead of Majka, Sepulveda, Schleck, Simon, Guillermo's and Jungels.